Welcome to this episode of the Voices for Voices TV show and podcast. I'm your host, founder, and executive director of Voices for Voices, Justin Allen Hayes. Thank you for joining us on this episode, as well as our over 227, including studio, remote, out-of-studio episodes that will be reaching 300 total episodes combined with the filmings both ways by the end of calendar year 2025. So thanks for your love and support, for having an interest in us, our show, whether you're watching, whether you're listening, whether you're here in the United States, whether you're in another country and you're tuning in. Thank you for that. When we started this organization, one of the things that we wanted to do was to have an impact, a positive impact, as much as we can during our time on Earth. And so you hear me talk about wanting to help 3 billion people over the course of my lifetime and beyond. And that is a lofty goal. We are helping one person at a time as we go. And throughout that, wanting to reach that 3 billion, we know that there are people such as myself, just an average person, and there are people that are in, positions of power, whether that's a mayor, a senator, a governor, and it has become to our attention that we actually have, we do have coverage, and people are watching it and listening, all the way up to our president, President Donald J. Trump, as well as First Lady Melania Trump, Vice President J.D. Vance, Second Lady Usha Vance, Secretary of State Marco Rubio, Senator Ted Cruz, FBI Director Kash Patel, FBI Deputy Director Dan Bongino, which we had followed his podcast prior to his entering the FBI, and continue to be a fan of kind of the no-nonsense aspect, as well as the Secretary of Homeland Security, Kristi Noem, and the Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth, and our Health and Human Services Secretary, RFK Jr. And we're going to start with RFK. So last week, given the day that we're filming this, last week there was a cabinet meeting that President Trump held, and around the table, all of his cabinet members were there, and which was very refreshing to see individuals and holding them accountable and having them talk about this specific 100 days, the first 100 days of the second Trump term. And so around the table went, and was able to watch that kind of from beginning to end. And one thing that RFK Jr. mentioned, which I don't know if it was picked up as widely as banning the food dyes, et cetera. And I'm going to quote RFK Jr. from that meeting. So quote, ended HHS, so Health and Human Services, as the role as the principal vector in this country for child trafficking. During the Biden administration, HHS became a collaborator in child trafficking and sex slavery. So that really caught me off guard, that was included with his remarks. We do know that there are around 300,000 migrant children that have gone missing during the Biden administration. So right, wrong, different, that's a huge number. There's a lot of children that are somewhere, and that our government is not quite sure, and we're not sure, obviously, from an organization standpoint. We just see what's on the headlines. So with that being said, we want to find those 300,000, and if there's more, children that have been taken advantage of, and part of that being the child trafficking, labor trafficking, sex trafficking, you name it. Unfortunately, is a way of life that has really encompassed us, especially in the United States, with the Epstein situation, as well as what is, the trial just starting on Diddy, with what has been alleged on what he had taken place at parties and in different settings, and so we, as an organization, think this is a huge moment to talk about this in depth, because there is kind of that big camera, the lights are on, listening, watching, what the ears, the eyes, what Voices for Voices is going to cover, how they're going to touch on these topics in the future. And yes, we have covered, I'd say quite in depth. If you look at our total catalog, like I said, over 227 episodes, that we have covered quite a bit. Human trafficking, through a human trafficking and specific labor traffic individual, David Solomon. So that's really not a surprise. And when we talk about children, what I'd like to continue on is our trafficking survivor. And so this is an individual, as I mentioned multiple times, who's kind of been in and out of the ringer, and been through a whole lot that no human, no individual should have to go through. However, at this point, being a survivor, that's good. However, his captor still wants to capture him, and so he and his family have to be very careful with the locations that they're at and their movements, and that shouldn't be the case for anybody, but especially a trafficking survivor, to have to worry about the location where they're eating at, where everything they're doing. And we all know that our phones, right, they capture all kinds of information, whether we like it or not. And how this really, there's 300,000 migrant children, and just children in general, relates to our trafficking survivor, David. His wife is 6 months pregnant, and because he is a survivor, his captor is trying to locate him. And so a combination of information, location data, and really just tracking, where the phone goes and knowing who the phone is connected to. Just yesterday, his wife, again, because of their situation, they can't go the traditional health insurance wise. First off, they don't have the money to be able to do that, but they want to have the child in a safe manner, a safe place. And we think that anybody should be able to, anybody who has a child on the way, that they should be able to have that child in a safe setting, and not have to worry about individuals watching over them, watching their every movements. So part of this, and we're not against Uber at all. This isn't a stand against Uber, but between the Uber location data of obviously being picked up and then taken to the, in this case, the midwifery, as well as her sharing that location and where she's at for safety with her husband, David, plus many other apps. But the specific app, the Realm, we've talked about Realm and the Realm Sphere, And so their app, I believe, is called the Mighty, and they like many other apps, track a lot of our information, whether we're on the app or whether we're not. And there's a combination of that happened over the course of 3 hours, where David's wife went to the midwifery, had, they were talking about the due dates and all the process, which I don't know. I just know that she had an appointment she went to. And so 3 hours later, after the appointment, she receives, and I just happened to have the text, and it really just talks about how, actually, let me pull, okay, here we go. So this text again, so it was like, I think 2 hours and 52 minutes, so we'll just call it 3 hours. So 3 hours after an appointment, David, our human trafficking survivor, his wife, received a text that says, "Hi, sadly, I had another consultation for September, and they signed up on the spot and paid the deposit, so she's officially full, the midwife, and won't be able to be available for her due date." And then she mentioned, here you can try this other avenue. And so that's a lot of added stress to anybody. But somebody who is already, right, they're concerned for their safety, their well-being, and for this to occur, we find that's very unfortunate. And again, she's pregnant, so she's 6 months in. And we talk about the 300,000 migrant children. We kind of think of these a little bit in the same sense. While her child isn't born yet and isn't a migrant coming across the U.S. border, still a child, still a human being, and we think it's just important for a lot of reasons for her to be able to have a safe delivery, and then safety for the family. And so we, with our high level audience, new viewers, listeners, we mentioned President Trump at the outset, and a whole host of others in this cabinet that are watching, listening to what we're sharing and the information that we're sharing. And so we know, obviously, that President Trump, we know you have a lot of power and over a lot of things, and we would just ask, if possible, to look into obviously human trafficking survivors, and how best an individual like a human trafficking survivor, David Solomon, how his wife can have a safe and healthy birth of their child when that comes time, and not have to, again, be concerned about their safety, of where they're at, among other things. So if that is something that you're able to do and your team is able to look into, we have a really good understanding that who David Solomon is, who his guardian is, who has control over finances and what happens, and that individual hasn't really been helpful for David and his family. And so that's the other part too, that comes into play, is we know there's good people, we know there's people that aren't as good as can be, and make poor decisions. And I think we all do from time to time do that. But some, as we're finding, make poor decisions a little bit more often. And we want to bring that to your attention, Mr. President, as well as the harassment that has also plagued this family. And so how do we know that people are involved, and we're making accusations, and we're talking about Uber and this the Mighty app tied to Realmsphere, Realmmakers. How do we know, or how do we even have an inkling that this is something that happened, that they were a part of this cancellation of this midwife being able to care for David's wife in a time of childbirth. Well, there were text messages that were received on David's device, cell phone, smartphone, however you want to call it, that asked how his wife was doing. And this was from a person, one of the top people in this realm sphere, the mighty app. And so, right, there can be things that we could pass off as, well, yeah, you're just throwing things to see what sticks. We just find that there's too many of these events that happen in such a short amount of time that we feel that those individuals at Realm, as we've talked about before, should definitely be not only looked at, but should be questioned. They should be brought in. They should be looked at as what David, human trafficking survivor, says, that Brian Davis took him, not just picked him up and watched Netflix and had popcorn, that Brian Davis chloroformed David Solomon in front of his mom, and he was taken against his will for 2.5 weeks. He was luckily able to survive and get out of that situation. But this individual, Brian Davis, and Scott Miner, who's also in with this harassment, who's actually the person who texted David after the midwife had that cancellation come through text. And these individuals aren't being looked at. David's story is not being taken serious. We as an organization, and we're bringing voices from all over, and we support the men and women in blue. We support people, anybody that's doing their job. But what we have found, been included on some communications, where there's individuals at certain jurisdictions, police departments, law enforcement, that have covered David's trafficking up to this point, and that's because nothing's ever been done to these individuals. Well, as one could know, people in high places can have a lot of power. And President Trump, all about that. Your cabinet knows, what they can and can't do, and all those things. The same thing with this trafficking situation of the trafficking of David, and the cover-up can't just be something that one person's covered up, because he's gone to so many lengths, contacted so many police departments, FBI, and have found that there are individuals who are high up in the government, unfortunately, President Trump, that have power to cover up when a report is made, when a phone call is made to talk about needing an advocate, somebody to support him in his quest to just have a normal life. And we know, unfortunately, that there are people that are at different levels of the government that are tied to different task forces, like the Trafficking in America Task Force. And we know that there are individuals who also have been victims of child sex trafficking, labor trafficking, who are in these positions to, kind of look at it as like a yes/no, right? So let's just picture you, Mr. President, you get lots of proposals, lots of questions, and you say yes, no, and people on your staff, help out with that. And so there's people like that are covering the David Solomon human trafficking at all, that it's just period, it's not gone anywhere. And we also, we talk about our kind of our high-profile audience that we have obtained. We talk about President Trump, but then we also talk about people in Hollywood, entertainers and actors and actresses. That there's individuals that have distanced themselves away from, say, the traditional Hollywood due to different events happening at some point. And so that's a big too. And we obviously know what the Diddy trial that's going on, and we know how delicate and dangerous situations that come for people who are speaking out. And Mr. President, we know that you unfortunately have been put through a lot of lawfare, people coming at you left and right while you're president, while you're not president at the time. And so we know that if people are able to file lawsuits and go after you, that they can go after anybody. And we believe that, in a sense, there's lawfare really going after David Solomon. So instead of David Solomon, human trafficking survivor, his family, instead of them getting the support and resources, it's the opposite. It's the people who are doing the trafficking, who have been reported as individuals who do trafficking through various means over, this happened in 2012, the year 2012. And we all know what year this is. It's 2025. So it's 13 years and nothing's been done. The Captors and his team, who are at high places in the U.S. government, U.S. military, and that's just hard for somebody like me to really wrap my arms around. And really anybody, whether they voted for you or not, President Trump, and what your excuse me, your agenda, and what your promises made, promises kept, type of situation, and we don't like to talk about politics. I mean, obviously we're talking about things here, but from like an individual standpoint, we don't like to talk about how we voted, because we don't want to alienate anybody. We want everybody to feel comfortable to share their story, to come and be a voice and celebrate that voice and inspire others to share their voice. And whether that's on our show or whether that's not, and we know that we're impacting a lot of people that we're not hearing about, that we're not seeing. So yeah, there's lawfare that's going on against human trafficking survivors. So something has to change. Again, where David Solomon, his situation, his story, told over and over again. You can check many of our episodes. The one that comes to mind is episode 193. There's also episodes where a episode in the 200s where he talks about his speed writing. And so we all have gifts. We all have gifts from God. And one of the gifts that David has is being able to write fast, and that was something that his captor seized on, because his captor is an author. He's a famous author, and a lot of people look up to him for we're not sure those reasons. Individuals, they might not know the situation and what's happening, but we want, again, first we want David's wife to be able to have a child in a healthy, safe environment. We want them to have an opportunity, as well as other trafficking survivors and anybody in general, to have a chance at a normal life, and that's not happening. And we know that the individuals that we're talking to and that are watching and listening, not just this episode but priors and your staffs, we know that the story of David Solomon and what's happened up until this point, and so then we would also ask that Brian Davis, Scott Miner, but especially Brian Davis, because Brian Davis did the actual trafficking, managed it, had his, let's say, cronies, do the dirty work with the chloroform and the transportation here and there. Which, by the way, it's interesting because the pastor at the church, when this event happened, where David was, where he was chloroformed, I actually called him and we talked, and he didn't say he didn't know David and his mom, Sapphira, and that was very telling that he didn't deny that he knew them. And so again, we're 13 years into this, and people are denying. People are getting the story covered up, left, right, and center. And the people that really need the help, they're not getting the help. The help comes in form of the story being covered up, no matter who it's told to, who it's shared, how much evidence, how much information is shown, how many screenshots, how many emails, how many police reports. And I've seen these police reports, many of them. I haven't seen all of them, but I've seen the hard copies, the green copies that go to the individuals. As they have, kind of that paper. I think it's white, pink, green, or yellow, but some combination. So there's several layers, and each layer goes to a certain individual or a certain level. And so I've seen some of these reports in Oregon that have happened. I've seen hospital reports. I've seen chiropractor. I've even seen chiropractor visit cards of when your next chiropractor appointment is. And we're talking 2012, 2013, in those years. So for people to come against them, and again, we're sharing the voice. We're sharing as much as we can. And we know, Mr. President, your time is very precious, and so thank you for even taking this seriously. We know you take a lot of stuff seriously, and we thank you for that. And so we hope, along with your team, that David Solomon, again, that trafficking that did happen, and if there's statute of limitations, we hope and pray that can be either abolished or extended to include 2012. Whatever you need to do, we fully support helping others, and that's why we've spent so much time on this story. And it's not just hearsay. Again, I've been included on some of these communications, and it's heartbreaking for anybody to not have an opportunity to have a normal life, to not worry about being followed and tracked and all these. And like I said, as recent as yesterday, that tracking and that has not stopped, as well as the harassment of asking how David's wife is, knowing the situation that happened with the cancellation, and knowing with the midwife, and knowing how few options that there really are for them, given their set of circumstances. So thank you for joining on this episode. Again, thank you, President Donald Trump, First Lady Melania Trump, Vice President J.D. Vance, Second Lady Usha Vance, Secretary of State Marco Rubio, and I didn't add at the beginning, but also include Senator Ted Cruz from the state of Texas, FBI Director Kash Patel, FBI Deputy Director Dan Bongino, Secretary of Homeland Security Kristi Noem, Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth, HHS Secretary RFK Jr., and the many, many, many more that have taken an interest in this. And we hope and pray that we can turn the page, and we can again celebrate the voices of David Solomon and his family. So until next time, I'm Justin Allen Hayes, founder and executive director of Voices for Voices. Have a great day, and be a voice for you or somebody in need.